Hi, my name is Monica and I'm here with Kenra Professional. Today I'm going to show you how to achieve this brown sugar brunette. This is a low maintenance lived-in look, so follow along so you can see how you can achieve these results. I like to section my clients into 3 sections, and as I'm working I'll go ahead and do subsections according to the section that I'm doing. So I'm going to start it off from the top of her head and just section out the hair that's going to be in the front. I always like to work with whatever my client has. She already has some babies, and since it's going to be a subtle lived-in look, I'm just going to leave those out and kind of help with the blend and that lived-in look as well. Just work with what your client and the hair is giving you already for the best results. For this first section, I like to always give myself a V section, and this is going to connect eventually to the front. So since I know this section is going to connect to whatever I do to the front, my first section is almost going to be a slice. Again, she has a lot of baby hairs that I'm not concerned about including, but I'll try to get as much as I can. So we're going to do a fine section like this. And I like to tease it. Again, we're looking for the blend. We're looking for a lived-in. So always teasing this first section. So this teasing on the top, once I start combing it out, it's going to help with the blend. Our main focus today is blend, blend, lived in, lived in. To achieve this look, I'm using Kenra Color Simply Blonde Blue Powder Lightener with 10 Volume Developer. I just tease the whole section, so other than the natural hair growth is going to be sticking out, but there's nothing else sticking out. For the second section, I am going to weave it and tease. So I like to weave it first and then tease second. For the first V section, I do take smaller sections because again, I'm connecting this with the front piece. So I need to take into account that we're giving her a dainty money piece. I still need the front and the back to connect. So I am leaving a little bit of hair in between sections to connect it to the front. As we go higher, I'm gonna leave a little bit more out, but just for this first V section, I'm leaving less in between. I'm going to use my first V section and use it as a guide for my next section. So I created an upside down triangle to start creating as much dimension as I need. The trick when weaving is the lower you pick up the weave, the more blended the highlight will be. If I pick up the weave from up here, you see how much I have left over, versus if I pick up the weave from down here, I kind of get a little bit from the up and the down. So whenever you have the upside down triangle sections, which will alternate from V's to upside down triangles, it's crucial to pick up your weave from a lower point in your section than the higher point. So once I split it into 2, then I tease. So our diagonal back sections are closer with the smaller tease. In order for these to really pop, we need, I like to call it a supporting actress. So we need them in the picture, but we don't need them to stand out that much. Hence why when I weave, we start it lower and we do more teasing. This upside down triangle will help support these higher impact ones. Without this dimension or these pockets of depth, these cannot pop as much as they should. In the back, we're going to start repeating this pattern. So we'll do, depending on the density of the client, we'll do typically 2 or 3 diagonal backs and then 1 healthy upside down triangle section. And we're going to repeat the pattern. And just because of the curvature of her head here, I'm going to go ahead and split this into 2 sections. Making sure the foil stays up top nicely. Something that I really like to do, and even though we're gonna give her that brown sugar tone, I always lift my clients, whether they're gonna stay in the brunette family, I always lift them to a level 8. And why I do that is because I know that she wants to be low maintenance. I know she doesn't want to come back to the salon as often. And if I keep her and I lift her to that orangey family, I don't want her to feel that now she has to come back to get toned that often. So if I lift her to at least a level 8, where it's still yellowy and blonde, that gives her the option whether she wants to come back and get toned back to that brown sugar brunette, or if she's liking the blonde. But most importantly, I like to give my clients that option and that liberty to make that decision, all the while their hair still looks great and they're not feeling brassy. We are done with the higher impact diagonal back sections, and now we're going to work on the supporting actress of the upside down triangle to maximize the dimension. And remember, for the upside down triangle, we're picking up the weave from the lower end. And the upside down triangle is always a healthy tease. Once I start hitting this top section, I'm going to start connecting the front piece to the back. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to be using the curvature of her head to connect the front to the back. So you see how it rounds out. As soon as it starts rounding, I'm going to use that point to connect the front to the back. And that's going to start creating another subsection for me. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So before finishing the back portion, I've connected the back to the front, and I'm using the curvature of her head as partings. All right, so these are my last sections of the back. This is the finished back, and before I move to the front, I'm going to check the very first foil that we did. I checked her first foil and she's ready, so I'm going to just start pulling whatever is ready before I move on to the front. As I'm moving to the front section of her hair now, I'm going to go ahead and quickly just reassess what her hairline, her baby hairs, and that will determine how close I'm going to get. So I always choose not to highlight these baby hairs, especially for a dimensional look, because I don't want people to think that they're just broken short hairs. So just like the back, how we used her baby hairs to help with the dimension, I will do the same for the front. Our model today has a widow's peak. So because of that, I'm going to, instead of starting on the sides, just for the few highlights before we catch up to the sides, I'm gonna highlight this little front widow's peak first. She has baby hairs already, and again, we're gonna work with what she has to create that dimension. So I'm going to just tease it a little bit to work with what she has. And then I'm gonna highlight this piece. Again, we're connecting the back to the front. I'm gonna let what naturally wants to fall out, I'm gonna let it just fall out. But I'm gonna create the blend with teasing. So now I'm done with my widow's peak, and I'm going to use this corner of the widow's peak to connect this section. So from this section, all my sectioning will come from this point. Why am I doing that? Even though she tells me she parts her hair in the middle, if she's playing around with her hair and she wants to move it side to side, she's always going to get the same effect regardless of what she does. She's not completely married to the middle part. If you guys remember this very first section, I just teased it and I included everything in the foil. And again, I'm going to be connecting this to the back and this to the front. So just as my first foil was no weaving, just tease, I'm going to do the same thing to this first fine section. As I'm using this pivot point, I'm doing two things. So I'm giving her that flexibility of moving her hair side to side, but I'm also, as my sections are going further diagonal back, I'm creating a thicker end piece. So this is thin, this is finer, and then this is thicker. You see how there's finer hair and there's thicker. What is that doing? It's creating that natural dimension just like we did to the back. So it's continuing that theme of high impact with the dimension or the supporting actress as we go. Before I move on to the final top portion, I'm gonna go ahead and make one more connecting section. So I need to finish connecting this to this section over here. It's gonna be one last thin section, and it's gonna be a diagonal back. If you notice, there's no leave out here in the front, and that's her money piece. But in order to make this really pop, I need that supporting actress. So I'm created this little triangle, and I'm gonna do the inverted triangle to create that dimension to make this section really pop. So here's the inverted triangle that we've been seeing throughout the highlights to create maximum dimension. And I'm gonna pick up the weave from the bottom end. Once I weave it, I'm gonna tease it. We're gonna use the same concept of picking up a low weave from the ends to create that dimension for this last section. So I'm gonna do horizontal sections. And because this look is going to be lived in, I'm going to start weaving from the bottom, then teasing. We're gonna use the same method throughout the rest of the section to finish the top. Before I tone her, I'm gonna section her in 3 quadrants. To achieve this brown sugar brunette look, I used 6 BC and 8 GB. I like to apply my toner like this at the chair because it allows me to really saturate each section and make sure that it's distributed evenly. Also, when I rinse it out, I do it in the same order that I apply it. After I apply the toner on each section, I like to go ahead and brush it through to make sure that it's evenly distributed. And sectioning it this way as well gives me control of every section and the application. We just rinsed off her all over toner, and I'm about to root mount her. And before I do that, I section her hair into 4 quadrants. I'm using 5B to root mount her to give her that flawless, just lived in look. I'm gonna start off with the 2 back quadrants. I'm gonna first apply it straight down through both quadrants, but work on the right one first. I'm gonna use the curvature of her head to show me up to where to drag the color forward. And once I'm done with this, I'm gonna move to the left-hand side. Once I'm done applying the left side, I'm gonna go back to the first quadrant and go ahead and start brushing the color through. Once I get to the hairline where her face frame is, I'm gonna go ahead and separate it a little bit. Now I'm gonna go back to the first quadrant, but I'm no longer gonna section it diagonal back. I'm gonna do horizontal sections and brush it out that way. And then we're gonna let that sit for 15 minutes. I'm gonna be shampooing her with Kenra's Triple Repair Shampoo Bond Repair. I love using this shampoo because it targets and repairs weak or broken bonds inside the hair. After I use the shampoo, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Kenra Platinum Luxe Shine Mask. This is my favorite after a color service because it adds that shine back in, it nourishes her hair and keeps it super soft. We're about to style her, but I'm gonna prep her first with Kenra Platinum Pearl Detangler. I love using it because it adds shine, but it also helps me detangle her hair. Now that she's nice and detangled, I'm gonna go ahead and apply some Kenra Platinum Blow Dry Spray. And the icing on the cake is Kenra's Volumous Extra number 17 to add all the volume we need. Now that we have my 3 favorite products for that bouncy blowout, I'm gonna go ahead and get started and come back for that final look. I'm gonna add a little bit of Kenra Platinum Dry Texture Spray number 6. And to finish it up, I'm using Kenra's Color Maintenance Thermal Spray 11. And this is our final look for the Brown Sugar Brunette. Thanks for following along, and if you like this video and want to keep watching more, be sure to subscribe Kenra Professional's YouTube channel.